Hello, everyone, and welcome to the More Sugar Podcast. I am your host, Amanda Calendar, and I hope everyone's having a great day so far. So, I would hope by now that everyone has also read the book Sugar in My Grits. It's available on Amazon, Barnes& and Noble, and my website, www.jdelinopublishing.com. Now, today is Sunday, March 6th, and I decided to turn on the microphone. I was in a pretty good mood this weekend. I did a lot of relaxing, as usual, hung out with my wife and my son. So I felt like, sharing some things with the audience. I would like to get on a recording schedule. The more I get this thing down packed. So until then, I'm here right now. So Friday, March 4th, it's been a couple of things been on my mind for the weekend. One thing was my parents. More so my mom has been on my mind all weekend simply because her birthday was Friday, March the 4th. And my mother's been deceased a very long time now. She died in February 2019. And even though that sounds like a long time, it's not a very long time when you miss someone and when you're grieving. But I don't. I think I push it out of my mind. I don't think that I want to be grieving this long. I don't know. It's hard in me so much. It's hard to feel emotional about my parents' death as opposed to other family members that I've lost, like my nephew, my cousin, and my brother, and my grandparents. And I realize each time when I dive into the reasons why uh, I'm more angry at their death than sad. It's because I harbored so much anger and resentment. And you think, well, I think that I've done so much work on myself and I wrote this amazing book. Uh, I I thought I was cured of the anger, or I thought I got past the anger. And I like to think that I am sometimes, but when happy times come up and I can't share it with them, uh, I feel anger. And so I needed to assess that. So I took some time this weekend to assess, girl, what's your problem? You've been to therapy, you have an amazing life, you're happy. Why are you still holding this anger? And so when I have quiet time to myself, that thought comes into my mind. And on Friday, like I said, it was excuse me, I'm having a drink of water. On Friday, it was my mother's birthday, and my sister texted me with a question that I didn't think that would be such a hard time answering, because when your mother's alive or when someone is alive and you celebrate their birthday, you can kind of keep track of how old they are. And when she texted me and asked me, I was a little embarrassed that I didn't know. And I tried to attribute it to me being busy at work. And I was just like, oh boy. And so I said to her, I said, I'll let you know when I get home. And that meant that I had to look through um, our family Bible. My grandmother has a family Bible. And in the beginning of the Bible, she has listed everyone's birth date and their death date. And in the Bible, um, she has passages highlighted and everything. But anyway, uh, when I came home Friday, I immediately went to the Bible to open it up and find that page. And the funny thing is when I came in, I was a little late because I was running errands, and my wife looked at me. I came straight in the door. I took off my jacket. I had a couple things. I stopped for my son at Target and got him some stuff, and I went straight, made a beeline straight to the Bible and picked it up and started flipping the pages like I barely had my coat off. And she's looking at me like, sometimes she lets me go through whatever I'm going through before she intercedes and says, "Hey, hon, you okay? What's going on? Everything okay? You want to talk?" So she let me. She actually never asked a question. She let me go through the Bible, and I took a picture of it. You know how black folks are with their numbers, and I sent the picture to my brother, and just to let everybody know, I'm the group chat starter with my siblings. Um, Sometimes we don't talk as much as we should, so I'm the person that keeps the group chats going. So in the group chat, I sent a snapshot, and in the dates, I realized that my mother would have been 70 years old on March 4th, 2022. And in my mind, I'm thinking like, man, and it immediately made me sad. The anger that I felt changed to sadness because I could imagine the celebration that we would have been giving her and Jax and it just made me sad. And when I'm sad, sometimes I read. I've learned to turn towards God in my sadness. So every quiet moment that I got this weekend, I would read. And it's a little confusing to my wife because I haven't picked up a book in a very long time. A lot of reading that I read is on my phone. And we have this thing that we don't use our phones too much on the weekend. We try to dedicate a lot of time to each other. So she seen me on my phone a lot this weekend. That was because I was reading. I was trying to find some solace, um, some clarity and understanding. I was trying to find a way to deal with the anger and the sadness without. Sometimes I don't like to disturb her. I think I'm disturbing people with my emotions when that's what partners are for. But a lot of times, if I can't put my finger on or understand why I'm going through what I'm going through, then I really don't like to bog people down because, like I said, not it was Friday night. We were gonna have some cocktails and watch a movie, and Jax he had just got some new Legos, and it was a really relaxing night in the calendar household when I walked in. So even though she knew it was my mother's birthday, I still didn't want to walk in and dampen the mood. And that's my more of a my issue thing than a her issue thing because she absolutely gives me the space all the time to feel whatever I'm gonna feel around anyone that I'm missing, around a hard day I've had at work. So there is the space in my home to deal with emotions. I just don't understand why it's so hard for me to deal with emotions. So I'd rather deal with them alone, like in my car. Like my cheese slips off my cracker at least twice a week right before I go in a grocery store. And it's therapeutic. Like I cry in my car a lot. I don't want y'all to think I'm a weirdo, but it used to be the shower. In the book I used to say it's the shower. Because I used to say, well, I like the tears to go down the drain. So by the time you've had that hot, steamy shower and you've processed, you can come out feeling brand new. But I think that with the car crying in the supermarket. It's like the days, or it's mainly I go to the supermarket after work. Excuse me. So maybe just maybe I just had a revelation. Like maybe I'm not. Uh, maybe I'm processing my day. Maybe someone pissed me off in corporate America or in customer. Excuse me, in customer service that I wasn't able to communicate back in a positive way or any way at all. And that's just, we can't hold feelings in too long, or they'll come out another way. Whether it's crying, whether it's picking a fight with someone, if we don't let our emotions out, they'll start to come out our orifices. and um we don't want that. So back to my anger. So I was reading something over the weekend. That's me. I'm drinking again. It's water. Don't worry. I'm not gonna get drunk and go off on the mic. Anyway, I read something, and this isn't mine. This is just uh, I can't remember where I read it at, but I take a lot of notes on my phone to help me process things, to go back and read a lot. And also, I'm working on another book with my wife, so the notes on my phone is my safe space for a lot of thoughts and things like that. So anyway, this what I read, it said I sat with my anger long enough until she told me her name was grief. Again, I sat with my anger long enough until she told me her name was grief. And I thought, oh my God, that's it. I'm not, I'm angry, but it's disguised as grief. So anger is my grief's Halloween outfit. I had to, it was getting a bit too deep for me, so I had to make it funny. That's another um thing that I do. Whenever sometimes when I'm emotional, I'll make a joke. Laughing. Funny has been my Halloween costume. So that's been a trait of mine over the years because grief and is so heavy and such a dangerous, dark place to be in. I try not to go and stay. And so whenever I'm afraid of something, I turn to anger, which made me, which in turn I noticed, like for example, my nephew drowned tragically. And so when Jax was born, I always knew that I wanted him to have swimming lessons. And in the capacity that my nephew drowned, I don't think that lessons would have saved him. It was just a tragic accident that I choose really not to go into detail. It was just a tragic accident that he drowned. Let's just say that. And part of me is guilt because I was supposed to be there, and in guilt, guilt makes you think you could have done something that you could not have done. So it's our mind's way of convincing us that if we'd have been there, things would have been different. That's my guilt. So that's the way I parent. I parent from a place of fear and I parent from a place of guilt, which is not a good thing because in that, everything that makes me afraid for Jax, I get angry and I yell. For example, no kid, no kid or a toddler will do what you tell them to do the first time, especially if it's something fun. For example, Jack's running with something in his hands down the street. Don't run, son. You're going to trip and fall. Okay, mommy. 2 minutes later, boom, take off. There he go. And now I'm angry because I think now I'm angry because if I think that if he's gonna fall, in my mind, it's the worst fall ever. In my mind, everything is the worst. The worst of everything happens in my mind. There's no way in the world he just trips and scrapes his knee. Not in the mind of a man, the calendar. In my mind, he trips and busts his face wide open, and we have to go to the emergency room. And so now, when he's doing that, or anything that I asked him not to do because I'm afraid of the consequences, and he does it, I'm angry because the fear has masqueraded as the grief. I'm sorry, the anger has masqueraded itself. So I am learning to deal with that. And it is definitely it's been a journey for me. And so with that, I have to practice getting over grief. I have to learn to not parent from a place of fear. And for me, that's spending time with God. Now, my intentions for this podcast was never to, um, I didn't want to come up here and turn into a preacher. But it'd be very hard for me to discuss things and not bring up the power of God or his influence over my life or how much I depend on him, how much I believe in something spiritual that has gotten me through what I've been through and continues. Because when I say what I've been through, I mean past things. Because I thought that once I wrote this book, I remember I did an interview on a Q&A around Sugar My Grits, a live Q&A. And the audience, someone in the audience had a question that said, so now what? What's the part two to Sugar and My Grits? And I remember my response was, there's no part two to healing. We heal and we move on. That's what I said, and it was June 2020. I said we heal and we move on. And 2 months later, my brother died. So clearly, healing is a constant thing. So just when I thought I was over being hurt and sleepless nights and begging God for clarity and asking why and needing answers, I got another. Uh, it's so hard to describe. I got another. I felt like this. I can't even explain my brother's how what my brother's death felt for me because like like again you have to read Sugar My Grits, Grief to Gratitude, Via Grace to get the explanation on how I felt about else's death, my parents' death. I was very angry at them for dying because I think they could have lived. They that both died from addiction related diseases that caused them to die. And in my mind, at the time, addiction wasn't a disease. I know very well it's a disease now, but it's not an incurable disease if you find a reason to get help and want to live. And I just don't think that they lived. So, and I don't think that they wanted to live. And so imagine a kid. Well, I wasn't a kid, but you're always a kid to your parents. When Jax is 50, he's going to be my kid. So I just thought that as their kid, they would love me enough to stop. And in my mind, they didn't love me enough um, to stop. So I kind of compartmentalized every death and I put it somewhere to be able to explain it. That's how my mind is. My mind is I'm a very rational person. I operate off reason. And so in the compartment with the dead parents was the reason because they were drug addicts and they didn't want to change, not even for their children. And then with my cousin, she was the victim of a murder suicide. So in my mind, this guy was a lunatic. He had mental health issues. That's the only thing that I think, or mental health issues. I explain it as mental health issues now, but back then he was the spawn of Satan. So I said to myself, he wanted her dead, so she was always gonna die by his hands. That's how I compartmentalized her death and Kendall's death. My nephew, I compartmentalized it as a tragic accident that couldn't that it just happened. Some shit just happens. My grandparents' death was they were grandparents. Both had health issues, diabetes, high blood pressure, bad heart. So grandparents kind of get a pass. They're just grandparents. You can chalk that up to age. So when my brother died, and it was this unexplainable emptiness that I felt, and I was back angry again. And so many people said to me, well, you wrote a book. You wrote a book. You should be able to get through it. I was like, man, fuck that book. My brother died. And so here I was again, trying to process. And here I was again. Well, I would say here I attempted to doubt God, but thankfully He's brought me through so much up until August 2020 that when my brother died, I could not doubt Him but so much. I said, when my brother died, I wanted to question God. I did question God, but I wasn't angry. I wasn't as angry as I had been at him for the past deaths because of our relationship that I've built with him over the years, because of my spiritual growth. I took a deep breath on him. Of course, I asked questions, but I got to a point of acceptance, and I know he loved me because there was never a time that I needed God and God didn't show up for me in one form or another, or there was not a time that I needed God and He didn't send someone for me. So if if these podcast episodes feel like a sermon, I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry, because of what God has done for me and my family. Even in the midst of tragedy, He showed up for me. And so a lot of times when people ask me for advice and I know they aren't spiritual people, I try to dance around um, what to tell them. But if I could tell someone one thing today, that don't to someone that do not know how they're going to make it, I would say you have to trust God. You have to go to God, and uh, you have to beg God. Uh, Some people, it's like, um, it's like when you want a favor from someone and sometimes you say, man, I don't think I want to ask them because they might say no, and I'm not into the business of begging people. God ain't people. So don't be afraid to beg God for whatever it is that you need. And it's not that he wants you to beg. Like he's something like, hold on, I'm drinking water again. Like he's some guy sitting high up in the clouds, waiting, like, wait till these humans come around here. They're gonna need me sooner or later. They're gonna be begging. Nah, that's not it. He just wants you. In my opinion, this is my opinion, and this is my disclaimer. I'm not a preacher. I'm not a pastor. I'm not an evangelist. I'm not a therapist. I'm just a person that's been through some stuff, man. That's my claim to fame. That's my expertise. I've been through I've walked through the lowest of the valleys with the darkest shadows of death. And sadly, I didn't want to come out of some of them valleys because I'd rather stay in that pain and walk through the fire to get to the other side. And that's where some people are. But I promise you, if you cry out to God, if you ask God to help you, he will. It might not be the first answer and it might not be the second answer. But look, I'm here. And only thing I can do is say that I'm proof of God's favor, of God's sovereignty. And again, I wasn't like all dainty and sitting somewhere like, oh God, please, I need you, I need you. No, man, it was on the floor, snot coming down out my nose, thrashing about, crying, begging. I was not dignified in my cry for help. I was desperate. I was begging for mercy, for love, for forgiveness, for understanding, for healing, for restoration, for favor. I begged. And he showed up for me each and every time. And so when when I have a day like Friday on my mother's birthday, or a bad year, what I perceived as a bad year when I lost my brother, I can always look back and think about the goodness of God and how he's just so amazing. And you just have to you believe in something. If you're a Muslim and you listen to this, I hear Allah's a pretty dope brother too. So it's all what you have to get. Your spirit has to be right. You have to want to. And there's so much work around wanting to. There's so much work around healing, right? There's so much work around changing, realizing that the anger that you feel is grief. Now, you might be angry at someone or grieving. You could be angry at a friend. Some relationships break up, right? And you're angry at the person. You can't be angry at someone for so long if your friendship ended. Then you realize that you crossed over to a point where you're still mad, but you have to acknowledge that you're grieving. It's okay to grieve friendships. That's no longer around. Like I lost some friends, not many, but I've lost some, and I've had to grieve them. And I was angry because I had these feelings about somebody that's not dead, or these feelings about someone that's people make you feel, and when you don't want to feel. For me, I'm like, man, I'm too busy to feel. That's how I felt on Friday. Like work has been crazy for me lately, and so when I had to acknowledge my mother's birthday, I wanted to, but I wanted to be happy about it. And I didn't want to feel the anger that I know sometimes can bubble up. I didn't want to feel the sadness that I know sometimes can bubble up. I wanted to feel joy. And I think God knew I wanted to feel joy. So when I came home and I sat down and And my wife keeps the radio playing because she has plants, so she believe in that. So when I sat down, I heard my mother loved Luther Vandross, and all weekend I just heard Luther Vandross songs on WPLS. So and when I look over at the clock will say 3:04. Uh, I feel a breeze go by. I believe in angels, and I just want to let her know that I'm okay, Ma. I'm okay, and I'm gonna be okay. Um, I said all that to say I don't sitting here today. I went to church today, and after church, I went and got a manicure and a pedicure. I went to church today. I went in the church, which I haven't done in a long since I started going back inside the church on my birthday, and today was the second time in 2 years I've been in church. So after going inside the church, uh, my church that I'm a member of we still on Zoom. So we was having Zoom. So I listened to the Zoom on the way home. So I call that I got a double portion today. So I felt amazing, and I felt so at peace after those two ceremonies. I went and got a manicure and a pedicure. I went and got a bottle of champagne just to drink mimosas all day and watch my son play. My wife cook Sunday dinner, and I sat here and put my feet up and I drank mimosas and watched TV. I drank a whole bottle of champagne, and I realized that I'm not mad anymore. So I got a little bit of champagne left, and I just want to say happy birthday, Ma. Cheers.